What's up, everybody? We got a whole new thing going on today. We are doing our first episode of Dynamic DPS. You guys know who I am, obviously, Jax. But what we're gonna do is a little bit different than normal. Like I just said, I'm gonna minimize chat, and there's not gonna be any alerts or anything turned on. And we're just gonna run through what we put together, and at the end, we've got time reserved for any questions that come in through chat. So I'll hand it over to Blasty. He can do a short little introduction on who he is, his experience with WoW, how long he's playing, and what he plans to kind of give to this Dynamic DPS show. So all you, Blasty.
Thank you. Well, I'm super excited because this has been like 6 months in the working, Dynamic DPS, something like that. So it's been a kind of a crazy journey, but so I started raiding with a guild Myth like a few years ago. Early Legion was my first time raiding with these guys, and Jack's been there since the beginning. So I'm super excited to have this going with him. And basically, we kind of stayed apart from each other, right? We only started hanging out and talking about this stuff recently in BfA or End of Legion, and so these ideas came up, and we started helping each other with DPS and just kind of getting better at the game, and that's where Dynamic DPS came from.
Mm-hmm. So in Blasty is way too humble to say this, but he's our guild's best DPS. I'll say it. I'm like third or second at best. But so like he was saying, we I don't know. It's true. I'll say it. So historically, I mean, you guys probably know this a little bit. I played an enhancement shaman for forever. And when I say forever, I mean like since Burning Crusade. Like, trust me, I remember Rockbiter off tanking. Okay, so I've been playing enhancement forever. But Blasty and I have raided together, like he said. In the beginning of Legion, I took a little bit of a hiatus from raiding in that expansion, and then we joined back up in Battle for Azeroth. And I when I switched to Legion, I picked up Demon Hunter, and I was okay. But when it came to BfA, like, I was straight ass. So I was like, all right, dude, Blasty, you're top DPS, dude. How do I do better? Tell me. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how this whole thing was born. So I mean, if there's nothing else that you want to add, Blasty, we can just dive right into what we have for today if you want.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Let's hop into the first topic. And I think I'm kind of excited about this one, specifically because it's about the state of the game and kind of where it's come, where it's going, where we think it's going, and then some things that we can do, hopefully give some ideas to improve on that. So you kind of already know my opinions on the state of the game and what is happening with that. So why don't I don't really know that much about how you actually feel about certain things. So a good place probably to start would just be Azerite armor. What do you think about the whole new system of Azerite armor and BfA and how that's working out so far?
That's kind of a loaded question, but I'll start out I'll start out high level. So in general, I don't hate Azerite armor. I don't. I think the system and the general idea of it is a good idea, but the implementation kind of fell flat on its face in the beginning of the X-Pack. So I think that what could have been done with the specific Azerite traits, there could have been a lot more done there. Realistically, I mean, more traits that changed actual gameplay would have been nice to see, specific to a Demon Hunter, right? Havoc Demon Hunter, this is the DPS show. So, but specific to a Havoc Demon Hunter, last tier or current tier, since it's one day until season 2 released, like my best in slot, aside from the old deer traits, was something called Thirsting Blades, which is essentially just making my my resource burn high damage ability be cheaper. That's what it did, which, okay, it's passive. All right. Like, I mean, that's essentially a passive trait. I would have liked to see more things kind of like dagger in the back, which Blasty, I know that is a trait that you and I share as melee DPS, but like it's cool, right? So you have you used dagger in the back before?
I've never gotten a good dagger in the back piece, so I've never been able to use it. And I know that dagger in the back is one of my best in slot traits as rogue, but I think the best in slot is double dose.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not entirely sure exactly what dagger in the back does.
So I think Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, do you have kind of a rundown of what exactly that does?
I believe that with dagger in the back, it's kind of just as it says. Like if you are doing DPS from behind, you're going to get X percentage more damage including right. So like that's what I'm talking about, man. Is like with Azerite traits like dagger in the back, where I have to change my active gameplay to make sure that my character is behind the boss and doing that extra damage. That's cool. I love that kind of stuff. So I mean that's really, again, so Azerite armor I don't think is a terrible idea. The implementation in the beginning was kind of shit, but with the changes that we're going to talk about and the new traits that are coming in season 2 starting tomorrow, I think it's a good first start. But aside from that, so I know Blast, you and I have talked about this, and you sort of hinted at it a second ago, like with dagger in the back as the perfect example, is a great trait for us. But we both have never had that. So how do you feel about the acquisition of Azerite armor? Are you cool with it? Do you have the pieces you want? I mean, just how do you feel about it?
I hate it. Like, I absolutely hate it. It's just, I mean, I feel like all of the design choices that they implement into World of Warcraft now are not based around creating a game that is fun, and it's based on creating a game that is elongated, so the player has to basically pay their sub monthly. And it seems like if you look deeply into it enough, it seems like every single decision is based around that. And a good point is the Azerite armor and the fact that before we had the Titan Residuum, there was no other way to get good Azerite armor other than your Mythic Plus box. If you were doing a Mythic Plus 10, you could potentially get a 385 piece out of that. Mm-hmm. And then you can get 385 pieces out of Mythic rating, obviously. But that's, you know, if you're progressing into Mythic like our guild was, and we were 1 out of 8, 2 out of 8, 3 out of 8, or whatever it might be, you're not really getting those pieces. So your only option was to get those Mythic Plus chests and mm-hmm. hope and pray that you would get a good piece. And I never got a good piece. I never got a single good trait on any of those items. And I think I only skipped 2 weeks of Mythic Plus 10 boxes, basically.
Some of us are luckier than others when it comes to getting what we need. Yeah. I don't want to talk about it.
But you got, and that's a good point. Like, you did get good traits. Mm-hmm. You got your good traits. But were they on 385 pieces? No, absolutely not.
No, they weren't. Right. So all my pieces are 370, which has been kind of the cuck for my eye level. Mm-hmm. But so I tend to agree with exactly what you're saying. Like, I think that the acquisition of the gear that you need is horrible. It goes back to exactly what you're saying. Like, they're banking on you playing the game long enough that maybe, hopefully, eventually you'll still get the piece. But, you know, we have our inside joke about me running Tempest Keep every single effing week, dude, for Ashes of Alar. And it's like, exactly. I always say, oh, I'm just going to get it next week, just next week. And that's kind of what we've been playing week to week since Battle for Azeroth came out. So, I mean, I think that the changes implemented in 8.1 with, you hinted on it, the Titan Residuum, is helping. Although it's like, I don't know anybody, including myself, who has actually used it yet, because it's kind of a moot point right now, because tomorrow I'll be able to use it for much better gear. So it was kind of silly to use it by the time it came out, because we were just waiting a few weeks for season 2 to release. But
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
I mean, I digress from Azurite armor. How do you feel about like just upgrades in general? So we all know that class tier pieces are no longer a thing. But aside from getting the gear, how do you feel about all the other pieces?
Well, and you did mention class tier pieces, and class tier pieces are something I never really thought too much about. But now that they're gone, I really miss them. And I think the reason is because they were such a powerful thing. You had a drive to collect all of those pieces. So you needed to collect at least 4 of those pieces in order to get your full set.
Mm-hmm.
And then no matter what you wanted to play, so if I wanted to play assassination on one fight and switch to outlaw for another fight because it was just stronger, I could do that freely without having to pay anything. And now if I want to do that, which I do, I'm essentially punished for doing that. And Ian's even stated that he
Ion.
wants people Ion, yeah,
Yeah, Ion.
exactly. He doesn't have his eye on the prize.
Yeah.
So he's stated before that he thinks that players who stick to one spec should be stronger. And this is like 15% stronger, I think was the number he threw out there. And that's why the Azurite armor is the way that it is. So you can't change. You can't just freely change. It's punishing to do that.
Right.
And it's also, I mean, obviously I played Assassination this whole entire tier, and I never got a good piece. So it's like, how am I supposed to get a good piece, not only for Assassination, but also for my other 2 specs, playing a 3 DPS spec. But as far as what they could do to make it a better system, I think, would be to first of all remove the cost of changing trades. Like, there's no point in doing that. I don't think that does anything good for the game. I don't think that makes people feel good about changing specs. And so either make it free to do it, or you have to be in a rested zone, or it's just cheap, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. That's kind of how I think they should potentially change it. I think it could be an okay system, but it's just too punishing right now, and it's not easy enough to acquire the gear that you need for it to be good. Like,
right.
They're treating it like it's a legendary.
And it's not. You're supposed to be able to readily get it. Like it should be something that you can target, and that's that's, we've talked about that a lot, and it's everybody knows this, but a lot of what's happened this expansion is this huge aim towards lack of player agency and an uptick in RNG. And for anybody who doesn't know what RNG is, it's a way of explaining how games are now giving things that players are after. It stands for random number generator. So it's literally luck. It's simulated luck, which is what RNG is. And you see it everywhere. So to kind of get specific about it, right? So you have Mythic Plus RNG. Everybody runs, or at least tries to run, a +10 every single week so that they can get their 385 or higher piece, depending on your RNG. And it comes from not a pool of items of which you've done the +10 on, but a pool of items across all of Mythic Plus. So like your BIS gear, best in slot gear, is only going to be several items, and it's going to be 3 of those items are going to be Azurite, which directly impact your ability to do more damage and efficient damage. And it's coming from this massive pool, and it's not even class specific. Like it's going to be, it's like armor set specific is how it is now. So all leather all leather wearers are sharing this pool of potential Azurite gear that they're going to get. And you just have to hope that you get the right one. Right. Mm-hmm. And then, you touched on rating a little bit, and, even then, like, it's a little bit easier to get raid pieces, but are those even necessarily the best pieces? Or are you just being forced to get those because, like with Old Deer, we saw the re-origination array that everybody got, which was, let's be real, it was a softball implementation of like making it easier over time. And I think that that's a huge problem with how the game has come along. Is it feels like it's being catered for people who are unwilling to put in the work, or unwilling to put in the effort to get good at their specific class. I mean, do you agree?
Right. That's how I already feel, and which is why we sometimes in raid will chat in whispers, and I'll be like, I'm doing everything fucking perfectly, and I'm barely even on the DPS meters, and it really like frustrates me that I really do put a lot of time into being good at the game, and I'm used to getting like 99 percentile, or at least in the 90th percentile of raid fights, and I can't even like if you get unlucky right now, you're out of luck. It's like too bad. It really doesn't matter how good you are at
Right.
your class. And I've told you like numerous times that I care more. I wish the game was based more around skill than just getting good pieces of gear,
Right.
because it's such a casual thing. And Blizzard is in this mindset that they need to make everything based around casual players, and they don't realize that people want that challenge. Games like League of Legends and Overwatch and all these other competitive games,
Highly skilled games,
highly skilled games, and you have to get good at them, and
Yep.
that's why they're so popular, because they just have, you really have to, if you want to enjoy the game the same way that these higher tier players do, you have to get good. And right now there's just no like incentive to do that. You can just get lucky and pretty much put out as good a DPS as someone who has pretty much mastered their class but got super unlucky with Azerite traits. And I hate that. That's like so it's just a really casual thing.
Well, in the biggest kind of like what feels like a middle finger is like, I know you and I put a ton of time into trying to min max and perfect like everything that we have readily available to us, right? So using third-party sources, using add-ons, creating our own custom weak auras, our own custom LVYs, you name it, we've done it, because that's just kind of the way that we roll when it comes to trying to be the best. We have very competitive personalities. So the biggest middle finger is when we may get unlucky, and then somebody who is not as good gets super lucky and is getting like back-to-back weeks their BiS Azerite pieces out of that Mythic Plus chest, and they have like, say for example, I'll use my class as an example. They've got really terrible uptime on using their best skills, and they're still out DPSing you. And their parses are better, because it's not that their gear score is higher, it's that their gear score is more optimized and it's more efficient and it's better, because there's this giant pool of potential and we just got the shit end of the stick. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
So I think we also real quick, I think we also kind of talked about another way to get Azerite gear and gear in general is through the emissary chests, but I don't know that we really need to talk about that too much, because it's kind of not even really a viable option to get the best gear, because again, it's Azerite gear, which doesn't forge, and those emissary chests that you get once you complete the world quests are only going to give you like the zone specific trait, which at the beginning of the expansion, interesting enough, Thunderous Blast was like my best in slot, and then everything got nerfed. So like I spent a ton of time trying to target those whenever they popped up, but then I got totally screwed when they did the giant rework, which I think you did too, didn't you? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that perfectly, but I was just reading chat. Just to throw that in just for a second, like I am monitoring chat, and someone said, as a former Challenger League player, I can confirm that statement.
Which statement are you confirming?
So he's saying, when we were talking about League of Legends and having a higher skill really drives you to do something. Playing the game more and having fun, maybe not with League all the time, but yeah, so just as a side note. But I'm just curious, so what would you do to change, what would you like to see change as far as the Azerite system goes?
I'm afraid I'm not as creative as I'd like to be to offer like really good changes. However, I think, just to comment on this for a second, like I think Blizzard are making a really good attempt at trying to make it right, especially with, okay, everyone always makes the joke small indie company, but small indie or not, a AAA title company, software development takes a ton of time, and you can't just like have a giant uproar and expect this giant system to be implemented the next day. I think that we're going to see iterations that will fix the core problem, and we already are, right? So Ian has talked about how with God, what's that car called, the Nazjatar patch that's coming out, it's 8.3, right? That basically the heart of Azerite, or the heart of Azeroth system, is basically going to be null and void at that point, because then it's going to be like traits within the necklace that you automatically unlock. So I think they're kind of backpedaling and regressing to closer to what they had in Legion, because it was very well accepted, even though not at first it wasn't. But as far as like what I want to see changed, I think that's it. Like I want to, at the end of the day, here's the deal. At the end of the day, everybody plays video games because they either want to A, look badass, B, feel badass, or 3, a mix of both. And it's usually the third tier, right? And that's what I want to do. It feels so bad when I have, you know this, right? So this is my biggest complaint right now, and it's not even Azerite related. It's the RNG gear related. I have had a 345 socketed Titan forged ring since the second week of the expansion, and I cannot get an upgrade to it. I had a 385 ring drop the other day that it didn't have my best in slot stats. It wasn't socketed, and it wasn't an upgrade. Simming it was 100 DPS lower than what I had, and that is ridiculous.
That's oh my god.
That is ridiculous.
And that's another reason why the Titan forging system is bullshit. And it's just like, why do you have a 340 piece that is not outshined?
345. Okay, 345. All right.
Okay, that makes it different. Yeah. It's just crazy, and it's that brings us to like another part of, you don't have a way to grind anything. And I think it's funny that Blizzard's way of saying it's okay that you have to do this week after week and get shitty rewards and never get anything you want is because it's supposed to be a grind. Like, the game is not a grind at all. There's nothing grindy about the game.
Right.
What the game is basically is just a time gate, and that's separate from a grind.
Right.
Like, you don't have the opportunity to grind. The only grind that you could potentially do in the game is mythic pluses and hoping for a Titan Forge.
Yep.
And that's just more RNG.
But that's, like you said, that's not a grind. A grind is I have a guaranteed result at the end of the road, and I know exactly what I need to do to get there. That's what a grind is, and that doesn't exist right now. I mean, there are parts of it like, okay, the only grind that I'm thinking of right now, just like top of the mind, is the Azerite power grind, which I am totally guilty of completely neglecting, because I'm like 34 now, and that's with me neglecting it for 10 weeks. That's a grind, and that is a painful grind, because there's nothing like tangible at the end of the road for me. It's a number next to my necklace and then a little bit of a stat buff. And if I have to do that to maintain high DPS, like, I guess I'm willing to do that, but that shouldn't be it. Like, there needs to be a much more rewarding system implemented with expected outcomes, and that's kind of been taken away. So
the funny thing too about that is you're big on always bringing runes to raids, and I love you because of that, because you are a super min maxer, and I'm a broke bitch, so I can't afford it. But basically what you're doing every time that you level that Azerite neck, the reason why it's so important is because you can potentially unlock those higher, or the rings, right? More and more rings on your Azerite pieces. But once you hit 34, anything in the next raid tier will be able to unlock like three rings in, basically.
The important ones.
Yeah, the important ones you'll already be able to unlock, and all you're getting for leveling up that neck more, when you're getting those stats on it, you get like one extra stat and like two extra main stats. So if you just take one rune before the pull, you're getting more value out of that rune than you are out of like 5 levels of the Azerite
Right.
neck.
Right.
It's just insane.
Right.
There's no reason really to grind it out right now. Because it doesn't give you that much. No one wants to grind it out. And I think even like Preach's guild, and I think Preach and the Fat Boss guys are in the same guild. Their neck level that they're required to get is 38. So it's not like you're that far off from what they require.
Right. And that's like with me barely focusing on it for the past week and a half. Like
Right.
if I feel like it, and there's like enough Azerite like world quests that are like clumped up in a specific area, then I'll go do it. Mm-hmm. And I just remembered I haven't done my AP for this week. So after this after the show, we should probably go do that. I don't know if you've done that.
Right.
I need to do that.
No, you already know I haven't.
Yeah, fair.
And then also a +10, which I haven't done.
Yeah, neither have I. Yeah, neither have I. We'll get that done tonight, though. We'll just barrel through it. It'll be easy. So speaking,
bringing it back to what to change.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Yeah, I think in 8.3 they're bringing in what you were talking about, which is getting rid of Azerite altogether and bringing in the neck. Mm-hmm. What I'm wondering is, well, what are they implementing in there to force players to play longer in a time-gated way? Because that's just all they do now.
Right.
I think it will help, like whatever they're trying to do, as long as they don't force players in some way to just grind out. Like, it's not a grind, right? It's a time gate.
It's a time gate. And I'm right there with you, man. Like I hate time gating. In MMO, to me is a game for which I have options to completely crack out on and get super, super far and get rewarded for that. Like I should be able to be visually, like, to other players, visually rewarded to show that I have put in more time and I have put in more effort. And that doesn't exist right now. And it pisses me off because I've been playing this game since vanilla. And I remember, everyone always says this, the perfect example of what I'm trying to get across is in vanilla, epic gear was truly epic. You didn't have them unless you were good enough to get into a raiding guild and go and submit your time, a shitload of time every week to get enough DKP to then eventually bid on a piece of gear, right? Which, we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole on how much BS there is with the forced personal loot system, which is, yeah, we can talk about that another time. We'll do like a bitching session.
Right. Apparently we could have made this whole entire
yeah. Yeah. So to move along, we've kind of sort of hinted at a couple of things that are coming up and being changed with season 2. Why don't we just kind of dive right into the season 2 changes? Sure. Blasty, if you want to start on just like kind of a brief overview of what's going on, I'll pull up the dev post that was posted by Ian himself, which I appreciate. He doesn't need to do that. BoD'A has an entire video on essentially appreciation towards the effort towards more communication.
Right.
But that is here. So we'll just kind of, we're not going to read word for word from this because that's boring and awful. But if you want to just do a brief overview, we can talk about those.
Sure. So basically what they're doing in the new patch, they're increasing our item level cap. So basically everything, or most of the things, are going up by 30 item levels. So to put that into perspective, right now, if you do a Mythic +10 at the end, you will get a 370 piece if it doesn't forge in any way.
Right.
So now if you do that same +10 after the new patch, so I think that'll actually be, so your next, I think tomorrow, right?
After tomorrow. Yep.
After tomorrow, it will implement. And then if you do that same +10, you'll get a 400 item level piece. But also with that, and they're increasing the difficulty of those. So your +10 will be much harder than it is right now. It'll be, it'll be much harder. And
30%, right? 30% harder? Isn't that the number?
I think it's, I don't know if it's 30% across the board, like linearly. I'm not even going to try to say the word.
Linearly? Woo! Woo!
And then the other big change with that is also going to be the Azerite armor changes to basically tighten residuum that you're getting. So on top of the 5th outer ring that we're also going to be getting, you're also going to be getting more tighten residuum. So hopefully you'll be able to buy better pieces of gear. But they're super expensive. I also think you're getting 3 times more tighten residuum based on what you're doing.
Right. So if you like, if you DE like a piece right now and it gives you 60, you'd get 180. Right.
Yeah.
And it's to offset the super expensive cost. But at the same time, though, like, it's not going to be a walk in the park to get enough to just pick a 415 specific item. So
exactly. Yeah. I think those, and the way they have it set up, or it seems to be set up this way, is that those items are specifically meant for Mythic raiders who are, really progressing into Mythic, and they're getting a lot of pieces to scrap and to get that big chunk of Azerite armor every time, or Titan residuum every time. So for people like us that kind of will be progressing heroic, so we're going straight into heroic and then we're going into Mythic, and we're going to be probably slowly progressing that, more slowly than a lot of these more hardcore guilds, because we're pretty casual at it. Do you think that people in our position will have a chance at getting a lot of those pieces, or are we going to be stuck with kind of looking at getting more of the random 415 item for 1,725 residuum, as opposed to the specific one that's 7,150?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, if I was to just speculate and guess, I would say I think a fair like, I hate to say this word because it triggers everyone. A fair, like, to put a time gate on how often you could purchase a specific 415. I think a fair time frame of regular effort to farm Titan residuum would be like every 3 or 4 weeks you can get a specific Azerite piece. I mean, I think that's fair. I don't know. Does that sound fair to you? I have nothing to back this up, by the way.
Right. I mean, how long did this tier last is the real question.
Sure.
Because
so
we basically got the residuum implemented into the game, and I never bought anything. Like, right. It never actually became, I never got enough residuum to actually buy something at the end of it anyway.
Right. So 4 months, we're essentially 4 months into this tier.
Okay.
So including getting the pieces from the dungeon, or from the dungeons, and from emissaries and war fronts and raiding, I think a very specific pick every month is fair. I think that's fair. I think it is.
I think that's fair too. Like, if you can get your entire best in slot, like 3 pieces just from doing that, then I think that's fair.
But you shouldn't. You shouldn't be getting your best from just targeting. Like, you should have a fair chance, a decently fair chance at getting that stuff to drop for you, right?
I wish that was the way it was. I think the problem is they implemented the system, and then they made it so Azerite armor no longer comes out of your Mythic +10 chest.
Right.
So they ruined it. Like, you should have both of those options, I think, to be able to get those pieces, because not only is it for your main spec, right, but it's for your other specs as well. Mm-hmm. Or am I too hardcore in saying that? Am I too elitist in saying that I want pieces for not only my main spec, but also my other spec?
I don't have that problem with the Havoc Demon Hunter, so I don't know. But I think that's fair, especially because I mean, we saw it last year with the world first race. Like, in Mythic requires this anyways, but you need to be able to be a master of all of your potential specializations. You have to be, because different fights are going to require very specific things, and they are so unforgiving in Mythic that if everyone in your group is not as good at their off specs as they are as their main, then you just have this giant conundrum of, well, let's bench this person, let's bring in this other person, and it's just too exhausting for the group itself. So yeah. I don't know. I think that's a fair ask. But let me ask you this. Does it kind of contradict a little bit what we were talking about a bit ago, where, if you want to hit the hardest content and be hardcore about it, like, you have to grind it more. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair thing to say.
okay.
It's hard because there's not like it's just like they don't give us the grind to do. Like I wish it was just like you could get those items from mythic rating. You know, I don't know. It's just a weird situation, to be
It
honest.
is, and I'm not clever enough or
Um,
creative enough to think of a fix for a game system implementation. That's why I pay you, Blizzard, so you can think of that
yeah,
cool stuff for me, and I just get to play.
right.
So in addition to like all of the overview of changes that you went through, we can just kind of recap what we've talked about so far. So obviously there's an eye level cap increase by 30 eye levels, which is the most they've ever done. You know, with that, the different ways to get those pieces of gear, excuse me, is through the
Mhm.
war fronts. And I think Dark Shore is going to be increased to eye level 400. And with that, I think the minimum for going into Warfronts has been increased by 15 eye level as well. So,
Interesting.
which is good. I mean, if it's easier to get gear, the bar should be raised a little bit, right? The minimum
Right.
bar. Emissaries will go up to 385. Or emissary rewards will go up to 385 now. Dungeons, you know, we talked about the increase in difficulty from what I've read, and I think is on here, is by 30%. So what was uh, here's a good example of it. So to do a plus 10 after tomorrow, it is going to be the equivalent as you doing a 13 this week. So I've watched several videos and talked to a couple other people, and that's kind of what we've all, you know, landed on.
Sure. Yeah.
Mythic Plus rewards increased by 30 eye level, and then PvP rewards also increased by 30 eye level. And so that's an interesting thing to talk about too, because I was never like a huge PvPer in the past. It was something I always wanted to get into, but I just wasn't very good at. And it's not like I don't know how to do damage. Like, it's just because I am so uneducated in all of the abilities for other specs that
Uh-huh.
I didn't feel, you know, confident enough going into an arena and being able to counter specific classes. So you see a lot more people doing PvP in arenas nowadays, which is great. You know, it's great for that scene, because I'm sure the really awesome PvP players are like, yes, yes, come towards me, noobs, and let me smash you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. And then there's, of course, with the Mythic Plus, the new affix at 10 and above, right? So
Yeah.
we had the little goonies, as we like to call them, that popped out of the infested mobs. Now we have reaping.
Right. Yeah. So the Gahoon affix was extremely uneventful. Like I don't think it made any sort of difference. You kind of had to think about maybe CCing one of them and
Yeah,
killing it
maybe.
last or something. But
Maybe.
it was not as impactful as what I think reaping is going to end up being.
I agree, because those little Gahooni worms, man, like you could just smash them. You could literally stomp
Yeah.
on them with your character's boots, and they would die. So
Right. Exactly. So reaping, I think you're going to love it playing Havoc Demon Hunter.
oh yes, Fell
AoE
Barrage.
Mr. Burst AoE boy.
Yes.
And I'm gonna have to switch to Outlaw apparently to keep up with you, but it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be really fun. So, do you want to talk about exactly what reaping is?
Yeah, sure. So obviously with Mythic Plus dungeons, in addition to the affixes that are applied to the dungeon that you're in, which change every week, at 10 or above, you're going to have an additional affix, which is always going to be this reaping is what it's called. So while you're in the dungeon, obviously you've got the timer and you want to make sure that you do it in time. You have to kill all the bosses, but you know, you have to do 100% or fill up the bar with X amount of trash mobs, right? So you can't just skip to the bosses and get crazy times. So as we all know, the bar fills up progressively, and at every 20%, so 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, every single mob that you had killed to fill up that bar is going to get resurrected where it died and start running towards you. Now, it's not the same exact mob. It's like a ghost version of those mobs, and they have what blasted 50% health, right?
Yeah, it's 50% of what they started with, and if you want to pull up the actual page that we have on reaping,
Yeah, that's a good
so
idea.
people can check it out. But yeah, they're different mobs technically. They don't have the abilities that they had previously. They have three set abilities basically. but they have, again, the 50% health, so they're going to be a lot easier to burst down.
Right.
There's going to be a ton of them. So it's interesting to think that, will this change how people actually run dungeons? Are they going to run dungeons and pull mobs that have lower amounts of health, knowing that at 20%, we're going to get all of these mobs eventually? So there's a few different ways to work it, right? Are we going to like CC the big mobs with sap from rogues and just ignore them altogether, kill everything else, let the sap wear off, and ignore that? You know, there's a few different ways to play it. Right.
I think it's a really cool addition. I mean, I think it's a very active way to change the landscape of a Mythic Plus dungeon. And it's challenging. Like, I mean, that is going to be super stressful. Not on me, because I'm DPS and I don't care about healing. I just need my healer to keep me alive.
That's right.
Yeah, Noct would kill me for saying that. But it's just, I think it's going to be great. It's going to be really cool. There was just a clip in the webpage that we have pulled up of Automatic Jack, kind of showing you what the reaping looks like. Here, I'll play it again for you. But they literally like res and then just rush towards you. So I don't know, man. Like you were mentioning, is this going to alter gameplay? I think so. I don't know the specifics because I didn't do much. Actually, I didn't do anything at all on the PTR. But you know, just as a thought, if there are the appropriate classes to drop aggro in your group, you know, I thought about that. What does that do? Well, I have an answer for you. So say every class in the group was able to drop aggro as soon as reaping hit. If they don't have anything to aggro on, they go back to where they were originally spawned, i.e. where they died, the original mob died. But here's the thing is that's not going to help you. I think that's only going to kind of make it worse / more fun. Because the next 20%, so say you ignore the mobs from 0 to 20, so at 20 they're running, you all drop aggro, Shroud, whatever it is, which I don't think Shroud does that, but you know, say you're capable of doing that. Well, they're not going to aggro you, no. But at 40%, the mobs from 20 to 40, in addition to the mobs from 0 to 20, are all going to bum rush you, man.
Exactly.
So I think it's cool, man.
Like the Mythic Plus 20 people, I could see them doing something crazy like that, because they do have crazy stats or strats where they pull a ton of stuff, and it'll just be interesting to see how those guys handle it, because I'm sure they have an idea of what they want to do already.
What I can see happening, man, is like, say you're able to circumvent that mechanic all the way up to 100%. I can see high-end plus groups like doing that, and then at 99% stopping, hitting the final boss, and then like right before the boss is going to die, maybe they pull a mob that would hit them at 100, they kill the boss, and then they completely negate that mechanic whatsoever. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Does it, that's the other thing too, does it extend it now to where the dungeon doesn't stop when you kill the last boss and it stops when you kill the last reaping, or does it stop when you kill the last boss at 100%?
Don't know, because when you have 100% and the last boss is dead, like all the mobs go passive, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I guess we'll see.
It's just weird. Yeah. Do you get 100% at the final mob right before you hit the boss and just do a crazy ass explosion of damage on top of the boss with all the, I don't know. It's just there's some weird situation.
Or while the boss, say the boss is at 10%, you pull a near. I'm thinking of oh shit, what is that place called? It's not Siege. It's the other Alliance one, man. Oh my god, the pirate one. Not Siege of Borealis. The Mythic Plus. It's not Siege of Borealis. Yeah, Freehold. Thank you, Jesus. Okay. My least favorite place, the one that I do all the time.
Is it?
I hate it.
I actually don't mind Freehold.
Dude, I hate Freehold. But say you're at Harlan, and Harlan's at 10%, and then there's that pack that we always leave, you know what I'm talking about? Harlan's at 10%, you pull that pack, CC some of them except for one of those little dogs, kill the dog, that was your last percent, and then you kill Harlan.
Right.
Does that negate all the mobs that were rushing you from the beginning of the instance?
I guess we're gonna find out.
We're gonna find. I want to try that. That sounds fun. But another nice thing is, like, say you all die while those mobs are rushing towards you. You're not out of harm's way. What's going to happen is those mobs go back to where they were originally spawned from, and they have like this mega aggro radius. So I don't know if it's double, triple, quadruple, tenfold, but it's like you can't skirt around them anymore. So like you just cannot avoid it. So it's going to be interesting. It sounds like fun, I think, is what Phelan just said in chat. Does sound like fun, and I'm looking forward to testing that out. So yeah. But so with the season 2 changes, that we just discussed, the biggest season 2 change, which is what we've all been waiting for, because I am so sick of BoD'A, even though it's a really cool raid, I'm so sick of it, is of course the release of the Battle of, I think it changes, right? Because I saw 2 different wordings of it. I think like on the Blizzard launcher, I saw it titled like Battle for Dazar'Alor, and then some places I see Battle of Dazar'Alor. I think it might depend, because like if you're Horde, it'd be the Battle of, and then if you're Alliance, it'll be the Battle for, right? So
sure, I can see that. Yeah,
whatever.
I guess if I was in game, I would check specifically what it's called, but I'm not in game, so
right. Anyways, we're all excited for that. That releases tomorrow. Our raiding guild is taking the easy way out, because it was previously scheduled this way. It's always been Wednesdays and Thursdays, but we're gonna see how everybody does tomorrow with it, and learn our lessons through other people's pain. But tomorrow with the release of that, I was watching Asmongold's stream earlier. It looks like 7 a.m. is the release of that. I'm sure there's gonna be ton of people. Obviously, all the hardcore mythic raiding guilds will be hitting that bright early in the morning, getting as much practice in. But this tier looks cool. It looks really cool. Blasty, do you want to give like a high level overview, and then maybe we can talk about maybe some boss specifics? I did some angry assignments for our guild, but go ahead, man.
Right. So basically 9 bosses this time, and it's it's interesting. Obviously, one of the bosses is going to be Jaina, so that's something that's going to be very important lore wise. And everyone knows me, I don't hate lore.
Let me ask you,
Sure,
Blasty, what is lore for?
Lore is for casuals.
What are pets for?
Pets are for casuals.
What are alts for?
Alts?
Yeah, dude.
Alts are for
alts on different servers.
All alts on different servers?
Yeah.
I don't know where you're going.
They're for casuals.
I don't know, man.
Talking to all you Moonguard nerds. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, Moonguard.
I'm just kidding. I was harassed and violated potentially there.
So Jesus. I think some of the bosses look interesting. Some of them I really do not like. And
which ones? Which ones don't you like?
I don't really like. I mean, the first boss is Champions of the Light.
Okay.
And if you want to look at it, it just doesn't have an identity at all. It's like, why is this here? What? I mean, the mechanics are boring. They're like, I didn't find it. I watched the video a few times of the mechanics, and it's just like, it looks like the most boring thing in the world.
Okay.
And I think the other thing that we can talk about after we look at some of these bosses is that the setting of the raid is not interesting at all.
Okay.
From my standpoint,
the whole raid, or are you just saying the first boss?
I'm saying most of the raid is not interesting.
Okay.
From an actual environmental standpoint, like where we're fighting the bosses, doesn't seem interesting to me. But that might be because we've been in this city the whole time, and Alliance players might think it's pretty cool.
That's fair.
Doing a fight, but when we look further into these fights, we can actually talk about that and kind of try to pay attention to the actual aesthetics of the boss arena, I guess we could call it, while we're watching these videos. But that's a few of the things that I picked up on.
So I actually disagree. I think that it will be a really cool raid. And I know we play Horde, so this is our home city or capital city for this expansion. But I'll be honest, man. Like, I spend all of my time in Dazar'Alor, like either at the Great Seal or like gliding down to the port. Like, I don't even know the intricacies of the city. Like, I know where the raid dummies are, because like obviously I'm a tryhard and I sit in the effing raid dummy room trying to perfect my rotation. But aside from like those 3 places, don't know much about the city. Not at all. I did, however, I was bored. Some of you do laps around Dalaran, some of you do laps around Borealis. I was just running around Zuldazar the other day, and I was like, huh. So that's where the entrance is going to be. It's just a little bit northwest of the city, and I was like, huh, okay. Because I'll be honest with you, man, I was lost. Like, I was like, obviously I can pull up my map and look, but I'm like, I don't know this area very well. So I think it'll be cool.
Not a lot. There's not. You can go around there and walk, but there's only a few places that you actually need to go, like you were just saying.
Sure. But I mean,
so
go ahead, man.
Yeah, you've looked at some of the bosses. I imagine you looked at all of the bosses. How do you feel? What are your favorite bosses? What are your least favorite bosses? What do you think?
Sure. So I agree and disagree with what you're saying. I like I said, disagree with what you said about the tier itself. I think it's going to be fun, but I do agree that like at least the Champion of Light is going to be boring. It looks like a very easy mechanic where it's just like a simple tank swap with those mechanics. You know, looking at the video that we have playing right now, we've got tank and then spawned ads, and then they need to switch, and then with the specific, you know, buff that the boss is going to put on, you either don't hit the boss or you don't hit the ads, and then you just swap back and forth with your little light beam array, you know, going back and forth that you don't need, you know, don't stand in the bad. So, and it's so slow, man. Like I hope that on Mythic that thing is fast. You know what I'm saying? And I'm really hoping that like
it can be purged. Like even if they get hit, you can just purge it, I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
There you go.
But you're right. The first boss doesn't really look too difficult. I guess we will literally be the judges of that this week. I think we're just going to like stomp through it because you can cheese this first boss from what I was looking at. So we'll see. We'll see. However, I do think that the coolest boss, you know, aside from Jaina, because I think that fight is just going to be really fun, is the Opulence boss. So it's kind of like two bosses in one, right? So from everything that I looked at, the videos that I watched, there's fat boss links in here if you guys want to go watch that. But like it starts and you have to split your group. So your group splits into like even like tanks, healers, DPS, and you go like into these like little alcoves of the room and fight mini bosses along the way, and then you end up in the center at the main boss, the giant chunk of change, basically. Like it's just a giant treasure of gold thing. But that fight looks so cool because the different rooms have different gems in them. They have different mechanics in them. And like, I really like the fights, which most Mythic fights, if not all Mythic fights, are like this. But like, it seems like it's going to be very unforgiving when it comes to people staying alive and properly executing mechanics. Like, I think that fight's going to be really cool. I do.
Right, yeah. I like that in that fight, you need to split up the raid and you go down two different corridors and fight two different mini bosses. And until you do that, you can't fight the main boss because it is extremely buffed and it'll just one-shot you, from what I understand. And I kind of like that you have to decide who's going where. And there are two fights here that are like that, one being Opulence and the other being Jaina, and I think that's going to be really fun, just figuring out who's going where. And at least Opulence is, you want your mobile classes going one way and you want your non-mobile classes going the other side because of the mechanics of these smaller little mini bosses. And then on Jaina, you both have to deal with the same mechanics eventually, so it doesn't matter as much, but it'll just be interesting to see how that's actually split up and how that works out.
Right. So Aluvic just said in chat, Champion of Light's the first boss of the raid. Historically, the first is always the pushover. Hopefully it builds in difficulty as the bosses go. And I think you're right. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. However, you are right. You know, that's usually the gimme. It's to build confidence in groups, and so that the LFR and normal baddies don't cry about it. But at the same time, like, what I don't want is I don't want the first two bosses to be gimmies like they were in Uldir. Because, I mean, Blasty, I think you can agree with this. Dude, Talik and Mother aren't really Mythic bosses. Like, dude, it's...
Right. They're like end heroic bosses.
Because we got those, Talik we got on our first night, easy peasy. And that was after clearing heroic. Mother took us, like 2 hours-ish, 2-3 hours of wiping just to make sure that we were all, cheesing the mechanic where we all go through at the exact same time. And that's not even really a boss fight. You're just cheesing it. So
That's what I didn't like. I wish that was designed in a way that you weren't allowed to cheese it in some sort of way, because everyone was cheesing it. I don't think anyone was doing that boss in whatever way that Blizzard designed it to be done initially.
Who knows,
And I'm
man?
not
Because
entirely
nobody
sure.
was doing it. I mean, no one was doing it
It's
that way.
just, yeah, it's just I don't like bosses that you can potentially cheese, and hopefully, and I can't think of any bosses here that you could potentially do that with. And you were saying there might be a way to cheese the first boss, but that's, you know, that's kind of unimportant, I guess, because like Vic was saying, it's the first boss, and hopefully they will increase. We know they're going to increase in difficulty. I think my problem with the first boss is there's no identity to it. That might seem weird coming from someone who doesn't care about lore, but it's like, what are we even fighting? What the hell is this thing? Like, I don't even care what it is. I don't know what it is. It's this weird. It's this lady riding like
What's a paladin? It's a paladin of the opposite faction, right?
Like I just don't care.
I kill paladins all the time.
That's right.
No, I agree with you there. Like, I mean, it's weak, but at the same time, like, maybe it's just weak because of, you know, the expectation that we have of tryhards and trying to go in there and be challenged, like truly challenged. And dude, I think we're going to find that quite quickly in the upcoming tier. I think we are, both as a group and individuals for damage dealers.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what?
I mean,
go ahead.
To get away from like just the negative aspects of what the raid is, obviously, I really only found the first boss to be kind of like extremely boring. And I think even the second boss is a little bit more interesting, right? You have Grong, you have this dude who will increase in energy, and at every 25%,
it's Donkey Kong, dude.
It's Donkey Kong. You have another smash that you have to deal with, and basically, if you let him get to 100%, after a while, you're just gonna get your whole raid is gonna get one shot by that much damage.
Yep.
So you have to balance it by forcing him to make him do those smashes earlier at like 50% energy or something. So that's just a little bit more interesting in my opinion. And plus, it's a giant gorilla, so you can't go wrong.
I don't know if you knew this about me, but some of my close friends know this. My huge irrational fear, like when it comes to animals, is gorillas. I hate them. They're fucking scary and terrifying.
Really?
Like, ask the question whether or not I would spend 2 hours in open water with great whites with an open wound, or like spend a night in the jungle with gorillas around. I'd choose the sharks every time.
Jeez.
Every time. Get away from me, gorillas. You knuckle dragon, poop throwing monkeys. Get away. They're too scary.
Gorillas.
No. Hate them.
You're trying to play it off like you don't, but you love them.
Nope. Look. Even ZM says great whites all day. Exactly.
What?
Exactly.
What's this irrational fear of gorillas?
They're scary.
Actually, gorillas can be extremely like dangerous, I think. But
that's what I'm saying, dude. There's like a video that I saw a while back of like these. It was obviously probably like in Africa, right? And there's just like this film crew there, like filming this. What are they, squads? Gorilla squads? Is that what they're called, or something like that? Their pack name or whatever. But there's like a squad of gorillas. Or troop of gorillas. No, that's monkeys. Whatever. Anyways, a bunch of gorillas walking through the jungle, and like the silverbacks like coming through like all huge, kung kung, and then just grabs one of the cameraman's legs and just drags him like 20 feet nonchalantly. And he's like, "Yeah, dude, I could F you up right now. I could." That's the worst. Sharks are just going to do what sharks do. They're not going to play the mental mind games. Okay, it's just going to eat you. And I would rather that than be terrorized by a small penis giant ape. Okay.
Giant ape.
That's why they're so mad, man. Their dongs are like that big. I know too.
I haven't done the research on
gorilla
dongs.
Hey, but keep your friends close. Keep your gorilla enemies closer. I know all their weaknesses. Jesus, you just shame them into leaving you alone. Yeah, dude. So is there, like, what boss are you particularly excited for? And then we can kind of go into the loot, because that kind of drives my excitement, right?
Sure.
It's all of ours.
Yeah, that's where the fun is. That's why we all play the game.
Exactly, because I want to look cool.
I think actually the one I'm kind of excited for, and I wasn't sitting here researching these like until I couldn't breathe, but
I was, because I had to write AAs for him, man.
Yeah. High Ticker Mechatork seems actually pretty fun. He has the mechanic of making things big and small, and you can literally just crush your fellow raid members. And
Vic, I'm coming for you every time, buddy.
yeah, you already know in the raid that we are in, people are going to abuse that, guaranteed.
Yeah.
So, but still, it looks like a really interesting mechanic, and it's new, and it's gonna be fun, I think. And I like seeing new things come out, like new, extremely or brand new mechanics in any way. Just seem like they're gonna be fun.
Yeah.
So, what do you? I mean, you've researched it, so what do you think about that boss fight
Um,
specifically?
I kind of think that you chose Mechatork because the mount's badass, right? And that's loot driven. Is that
I
a
just
piece?
know I'm not gonna get. That's not why, because you know I'm not gonna get them out, so it doesn't matter.
Fair. It'll probably be Vic after we shrink him a bunch.
That's right.
I don't know. I really, I guess I hinted toward this earlier, but I think Opulence is going to be a ton of fun. And then of course Jaina. Like I think that's going to be so much fun. Especially with, this will segue us into the loot discussion with some of the really cool pieces of gear that you can get to again, like we talked about earlier in the stream, alter the way that you play. Right. So a little foreshadowing here. Well, not even really foreshadowing, but just straight explanation is there is an item that you can get. Well, range DPS can get that is an offhand that on use will limit the effects of the mechanics on Jaina. That is freaking cool, man. Like that's awesome. I love that kind of stuff. That is true like player engagement that makes you feel connected to the actual instance. There's some sort of like you feel like you're actually a part of it. The immersion's a little bit more real when you have things like that. So I think that'll be really cool. But just to dive right into the armor sets and stuff, the biggest complaint this expansion has been the removal of class tier pieces for whatever reason you want to say. You can have you can talk about the lack of class identity, but I think at the heart of it, like again, people want to feel cool, look cool, is you don't get anything from the gear. Like it kind of looks cool, but you look like every other leather wearer, plate wearer, cloth wearer, mail wearer, whatever. And there's no uniqueness or identity to it. So they're doing some really cool things. I'm gonna kind of skip ahead a little bit here, Brad, but there's a couple of pieces, or Bradsty.
It's okay.
Bradsty.
Everyone knows now.
Yeah.
The secret's out.
The secret's out. Is they've introduced some items that actually have set bonuses. Now they're not like tier armor set bonuses. They're just like 2-item pieces. So excuse me. The first one that is really cool is called the Keepsake of the Resolute Commandant. And it's a combination of a one-handed sword and a ring, and it gives a chance on auto attacks dealing 220 frost damage and slowing the target. So I think it's by 10%. I think that's going to be awesome for PvP. I mean, straight up. Yeah. That is going to be incredible. And I think PvP needs that, and I think the game needs that. So that's really, really cool. But the one that I am more personally interested in as Havoc Demon Hunter is the Gift of the Loa, and it's more Horde, so hell yeah. The Gift of the Loa is a combination of Abyss Ring and Abyss Cloak. So haste first ring and haste first cloak for Demon Hunters. There's nothing more you could ask for. And when you have those on and you're in Zuldazar, you get a primary stat increase by 150. That's huge. Mm-hmm. Now I know a bit ago I complained about like passive traits and stuff like that. That's cool because that incentivizes me and makes me happy to get those pieces, right? Because that would make a difference. So say we're in Heroic and I have the 400 pieces for those, but then I get a 415 ring. I'm probably going to keep that, and I would be okay with that sacrifice because that's going to give me something way more than just a feels bad man because I didn't get, luck on a forge. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that's cool.
Yeah. I think that's cool that they implemented that as well. And interestingly enough, Preach just did a video about that. I think it's his latest video about how I think back in Burning Crusade, that's kind of how it was. They had these items that
Karazhan, man.
You knew that they were your best in slot item. You just knew they were good. You didn't have to go sim anything, like, although that's what we do now, but you just knew what it was. You knew where it came from. It looked cool. It did something cool, and you had to have it. And that's kind of what the game needs. And I'm really glad that they're implementing that into the game. I think they need to do more of that. I think or this might actually just be a taste of kind of what we might be looking at getting more at, or in like 3 or whatever the next tier is, or whatever is going to happen after Azerite goes away. And there might be more flavor to things like that.
I love that stuff, man. And I think that you're right. It's a little test, a little, toe in the water to see how it is and how the player base is going to handle it. And here's the thing, man. Like, I don't understand why you would need to test that if that is the intent, because it's been tried and true in the past. Like, nobody ever complained about that kind of stuff in the past. And you've only heard complaints about taking away from things like that. So of course this is going to be well accepted. But even then, like, although not set items, there are more items in the Battle for Dazar'Alor that have that flavor, like you were talking about. Perfect example is each armor set, so cloth, leather, mail, and plate, get a crown drop. I think it's off of opulence. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but the crown piece that you can get, it's a headpiece and it looks like a crown. It looks like a jewel encrusted crown. There's the little flavor on use below is prying a gem from the crown. Now, Asmongold, I was watching his stream earlier. He thought that you would just get like a green gem, like a jewel crafting gem from that. And no, that's not the case. You pry a gem from it, and it's not something physical you get in your bag. It's a buff that your character gets. I think you have 6 potentials. This brings a little bit of RNG into it. Otherwise, it'd be totally overpowered. But like, there's fun little ones. Like, I think you pry a gem and it shrinks a party member, or you pry a gem and it makes a party member or you sparkle, right? So you're shiny or something like that. But then there's like, yeah, you shine bright, bro. You shine bright. But then there's like actual performance based ones where I think one of them increases. I don't want to misquote it, but it's a huge performance gain. I can try to find it here in a minute and we'll go through them. But there's a ton of items like that. I mean, Brad, do you want to talk? Or Jesus, man, Blasty, I can't do it. Blasty, you want to talk about some of the other ones?
So I actually don't know much about these mechanics, and you did a lot more research than I did based on these, but I was definitely confused on how it actually worked, but you seemed to clear it up. So are you saying that it kind of works like a trinket would work, an on-use trinket where you activate the item and it'll randomly give you one of these 6 things?
Yes and no. So yes, in the sense that yes, it does that. No, because trinkets usually have a really short cooldown, like 90 seconds, right?
Right. What's the cooldown on
It's 20 hours. So it's not something that, okay. Exactly. So it's not something that you're probably gonna, I mean, I guess you could macro it, but
how long does the effect last?
It depends. Some of them are for a minute. Some of them are for 5 minutes, I think. I can pull them up and we'll get some more details on it. But while I do that,
okay, that's definitely interesting.
Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about? I think I sent you some notes on some of the other ones. Like there's the gun, the offhand, the cape. I think they're in our Discord conversation. If you want to scroll up a little bit, but like I was saying, there's some really, really cool things that are coming with those items. And I don't know. I'm excited with those crowns, even though it's not going to be like actually something you can take advantage of on a regular basis. It's a cool little flavor that you're going to get. And for the life of me, I can't find the link I was looking at earlier. Let me see if I can find it.
So are we talking about the like gun buster shot plus 5,000 damage?
Yes. That's exactly.
Offhand, reduce howling winds on Jaina. You talked about that a little bit earlier. Cape plus 5 engineering. Gloves plus 20 speed on engineering mount. That's interesting. Boots plus 30 speed after looting gold. So that's going to be a nice thing to have if you are, and I guess it depends on how long. I still don't understand how this works, so it's going to be something I have to see in game personally to actually understand how this works. But
which one is it?
Obviously, so I was talking about the boots plus 30% speed after looting gold. So if you're a gold farmer, or if you're just farming old content, you would obviously want something like that because you just loot something and you speed off and you fly through whatever content that you're doing.
Yep.
So,
Which is cool. I mean, I think that that's really cool. And then, of course, the last one is that trinket, which if you made the right choice, and as a Horde player, if you chose Paku instead of Gonk, the Raptor, if you chose the Pterodactyl as your Spirit Loa instead of the Raptor, you get access to these totems around Dazar'Alor that will fly you places because it's a very vertical city, right? So there's a trinket that will just port you to one of those totems, which is cool. Yeah. Nice little flavor thing. But let's use the description of the boots you just talked about. The 30% speed if they're looting gold, that will help with, you know, introducing an incentive, or at least some little incentive to older content. Because, dude, like some of those old raids, man, are so big. And I'm talking specifically like Black Temple is huge. Sunwell is huge. And, you know, Dragon Soul, even in some parts, is huge. So, like, I don't want to go do that. In some places, sometimes I can't even mount up. So with the 20% or 30% speed after looting with those Dazar'Alor drop boots, going back to the crowns, one of them is increasing your speed by 120 for 1 hour. And I have them up on the screen right now. So there's 6 choices. I'll read them off just for the sake of those who may be listening and not looking. But one of them reduces a party member size by 50% for 5 minutes. Vict, that's going right towards you if I can choose it. One of them can make a friendly player sparkle, like what I said before, 30-second cooldown. One is the speed increase. Another one restores 33,000 health. But that cooldown is shared with healing pots. So not really useful, but if you have it macroed, it could be okay. Maybe. I don't know. Another one is going to heal you for 166,000 and give you 80,000 mana over 20 seconds. And if you spend 10 seconds focusing on the gem, you'll be well fed. So it's like a food buff, kind of a food buff there. But dude, like that one is huge. That's a huge performance increase. If you could, you know, obviously you can't target them, but if you could use that in a boss fight, you know, that's a full heal almost, man. Like that's huge. That's a full, you know, that's a large portion of a mana bar for a healer. And then the last one. Real quick, the last one is increasing all stats by 400 for a minute. That's massive, dude. That's like a freaking bloodlust or time warp. Like that is huge. Mm-hmm. So
that's like a very powerful trinket. I don't know how they intended this to be used in game. Like, I don't know if you've researched this anymore based on like anything else, but I don't know. From what I'm getting from this, I don't know if they intended this to be used for raiding or just for like more casual content.
I don't know.
What do you think about that?
I think both. I think it drops on a raid so that you could use it. Again, is it I get to pry a gem from it, and then the gem is a physical item in my inventory, and then I have a cooldown with it on that gem that I can put on my bars? Mm-hmm. If that's the case, sick. I get a new gem every 20 hours, and eventually I can collect them all. That's cool.
That would be cool. Yeah, that's interesting.
But so based on our conversation a bit ago about the items, I want to read off questions. I know I said I wasn't going to do this initially, but Vict mentioned something about the ring buff. If the ring buff is truly performance-based, it's going to be annoying. Quote unquote, sorry guys, my game made me sparkle instead of a DPS buff. GG. Fair. But I think that I think this is literally like cherry on top kind of stuff, man. Like I don't think it's anything that you can rely on. But then again, I could be wrong. I haven't played the PTR. I haven't really found much about this. The Wowhead site doesn't have much on the comments of these. So hopefully we'll find out together, man. Like I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about how it worked. I do know that, as we know from Blizzard, they're kind of against, I wouldn't say they're against like third party add-ons, obviously, because they allow them, but they are against things that require you to use those to be as good as you could be, I guess. So if that were the case, you would have to be tracking those buffs in some way, right? Yeah. If you wanted to get the actual benefit from them, you'd have to be tracking the important ones with weak auras, basically,
Right.
unless you wanted to look up at your whole buff.
Who does that?
Bar, and I mean, a lot of people.
That's not true. That's true.
But I don't have a video about how to fix that or anything. So.
Wait, you don't have a video about that? But Blasty, I thought you spent a ton of time putting a video together about how to create your own weak auras.
Oh, if people would just watch it.
Yeah. So we'll put, by the little cameo, shameless plug, we'll put links to videos and stuff that we've created to help you guys with what's helped us. We'll put those links in chat and on the YouTube description below if you want to check those out. But you're right. I don't think they're anything to be relied upon unless you pry the gem out and it's something that sits in your inventory for 20 hours. You know what I mean?
That could be interesting.
My puppy's barking.
I'm actually excited to see what is going to come of that, because it's new. It's completely new. It's something we haven't seen before.
Yep. So we have like 15 minutes left or so. I wanted to save some time at the end for anybody who is tuning in to maybe ask some questions. We can just kind of barrel through the new armor sets real quick, because this is again, like I said, cherry on top, sprinkles, whatever you put on top. Everybody wants to look at the new gear, the cloth sets, the mail sets, the leather, the plate. So we can just kind of go through here what they're going to look like. And first up is the cloth set. You know, dude, I think it looks sick. In my opinion, I think it's the best looking one. Like
I think it is too.
It's so warlocky, man. Like they always historically have had the coolest looking tier sets, and you know, maybe that was the catalyst for them pulling tier sets away, because everyone's always mad at warlocks for getting the most badass ones.
Well, seriously, and that's the thing. Like, I need to make an alt for going into like kind of our casual heroic raids, and I seriously considered a warlock, because their set is like, look at that.
All of them,
insane.
All of the warlock tier sets in the past have always been awesome looking.
And even the weapon, I don't know if we have a good view of the.
We'll get to the weapons last, but we will. Yeah.
But it goes perfectly with that. Like, it really looks good.
Yeah. So so the mythic. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Were you still talking about the or not the leather, but the
cloth
set?
A little bit. I just kind of wanted to show, you know, obviously the differences between mythic. So there's kind of a taste of that left. You know, if you do mythic, you get a cooler looking set, and that definitely shines through here with the warlock, or the cloth set.
It is the warlock.
It really is the warlock set. But that looks badass right there. That looks so cool.
Does.
I want it. The leather sets here. I'm biased, obviously, because you know this is my set. It's really rib cagey. Like it's
rib cagey.
Rib cagey. I think it looks cool for sure. I'm really pumped about the heroic set, because if you guys couldn't tell, purple and green is kind of my thing. If I can match some green warglaives up with that, I think it'll look really badass. But the mythic set does look really cool. It really does. Yeah. It does. I just hate like that I'm gonna go ahead.
I'd say that's probably, out of all the sets, that's probably my second favorite, behind the cloth set. And I don't mind the really, like you said, the kind of a rib cagey look. Mm-hmm. I really think the shoulders, or at least the mythic shoulders, look really good.
They do.
And the helm is definitely unique, and I like that. The rest of it, I could kind of take it or leave it. It obviously goes well together, but what other transmog does it work with outside of this particular set?
Well, I will definitely, we'll have to see. I'll be the judge of that, because I like to kind of mix in past gear and recent gear to kind of make a cool, unique look.
Definitely.
Okay, mail. I'll be honest, man. Not impressed. I think it looks dumb.
No, I think they should just trash it.
Sorry to all the mail wearers out there. I think it looks terrible.
Get rid of it. I'll be happier without it.
It looks like a Krog skull, maybe.
Yeah. Who is this for? And I think the biggest problem is probably the helm is just, it just doesn't seem to work with the actual rest of the set. Like, I don't know what I don't like about it. I just know that I don't like it.
I'll be honest with you, man. Like, that looks more leather roguey to me than anything else.
Sure.
It does, with the hood.
It looks, it could be even a caster of some sort, like it could be even be like a warlock thing. The
Yeah.
helm or the mythic one. The other ones are just they're bad. They're really bad.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not sure.
just like the purple. That's the only acceptable one to me is the purple, because I like purple.
Right.
That's it.
It's just the color.
Plate
Just give him
though,
purple and he's happy.
the plate mythic set I think does take the cake. That
It is the
Triceratops,
shoulders.
dude.
Yeah.
I like the asymmetry that they got going on too, which I've noticed they've done that a lot more this expansion. Is they have asymmetric gear pieces, like on my character, for example, on his gloves. One of them is like armor clad, and the other one is like just like leather, which I appreciate that. I don't always really like straight symmetry. I think it gives it more character and flavor when you have asymmetric types of things like this, like
Yep.
the plate shoulders.
Again, something that's really unique, and they need to keep doing more of this because I feel like with a lot of the player base, when they bring unique things in that they've never done before, for the most part, unless we're talking about like islands or warfronts.
Sure. Let's not trigger everybody, okay?
But, but for this stuff, and Vic just said, just skip the mail set. But yeah, it's really unique. The problem is, if you're not doing Mythic, look what you're getting.
Fair. But that goes back to one of my points in the beginning of what we talked about, man, is that is an incentive for Mythic players to actually stand out. And I appreciate that. Are we going to progress that far in Mythic to get gear like that? I really hope so. And I think that we have the potential to do it, right? Because our guild has not historically been a Mythic guild, but we've now spent a ton of time, months recruiting, practice, putting in requirements for our team to be able to push this content. I want to be rewarded with gear like that. That looks so freaking cool. And for
it's more of a reason to go through Mythic.
right. And it's too bad that our only warrior in our group is benched this tier for real life issues. Because I would love to see Europa in that set. Man, I would love that.
Doing it in general.
But instead we're gonna disenchant.
No, we have paladins, but
we do. So yeah.
this doesn't feel paladin-y.
Exactly. I mean, I guess the Mythic kind of does because that little white aura coming off of it, kind of paladin-y, but that's more like barbarian warrior style, man. You know?
Right. Oh, totally.
But getting to the cool stuff, the weapons.
Let's go.
Let's go. So, of course, we're starting with you, Mr. Rogue. Daggers first, which, I mean,
Sure.
okay, so let's go through each one. So how do you feel about this Desecrated Blade of the Disciples? How do you feel about that?
So I don't see myself ever using this. The only thing I really like about it are the little like teeth on the bottom that are colored.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. I don't know what this would go with as far as transmog.
I do.
Do you have an idea?
Yeah. Shitty Zulaman or ZG stuff, truthfully.
There you go, which I would never use. So
I don't like that dagger at all.
You don't like it at all?
I don't like it at all.
That's what I'm saying. The only thing I like is the little teeth at the bottom. I wish they would have done something different with that. That's pretty cool.
I like the purple and green dagger in the middle. For obvious reasons. Of course I do. Of course I do. That Greed's Folly does look pretty cool. The next one down in the middle. I think that one looks really awesome.
Yeah.
But the very last one, dude, that last Fang of Raison. Have you seen that one? Have you seen it in game equipped?
This doesn't do it justice because in game that thing is a sword. That's not a dagger. That's a sword. That thing is huge.
Oh dang, I can't. I'm gonna get a character model.
I really wish that the colors. I guess I'll use like toy boxy as a way to describe how it looks. I don't know. I always think of things based on what could I use this as far as transmog, and it does fit the theme of like the whole Dazar'Alor thing, but the colors are they're not my favorite thing. Doesn't mean it's not a good dagger. It just means I just don't know what it would go good with.
Yeah, fair. Let's move a little quicker through these. So if anybody wants to ask questions at the end, we have time. The glaives, I'm a demon hunter, so I guess I'm supposed to be biased towards liking them. They look okay. I'm not really thrilled. The bone glaive was already done in Legion with one of its secret appearances. I think the other one looks better. I think it does.
I like them personally. I think that they'll go really good with the set, obviously.
Obviously.
For it, but yeah, it will look good. I think.
Fist weapons. I think these are cool. I think that, you know, I like the added effect. This picture set doesn't do it justice because the blood is actually dripping from the item itself. So it's a bit cooler in game, but that's already been done with a fist weapon. You know, I'm thinking the first boss in WoD, man. It's what's his name? God, Kargath Blade Fist.
I didn't play that.
Right, Blade Fist already had dripping blood from the mythic difficulty or the hardest difficulty. So
they're more along the lines of being fun rather than being like, I don't know, badass, I guess. And
yeah.
What it kind of reminds me of a little bit is they had the monk, I think at Mage Tower. It was just really big like Hulk hands, and I haven't seen these in game, so I just expect them to kind of look that way.
Yeah,
like really bulky and. But I can see them kind of being cool in some mogs.
The maces. So how do you feel about the maces in general?
Do not like them.
I don't like this first set. This Ape Tagonizer's Claw. That's cute. Ape Tagonizer's Claw.
With the Steam coming out, but that's only the mythic version, obviously.
Yeah. But these goblets of glittering favor. Jesus, can I talk? Goblet of Glittering Favor. I think they're cool. I think they meet what they're trying to go after, which is a goblet, obviously, which is a cup for those of you nerds who don't know what a goblet is. But what they don't show here is they're full of gold coins, and they have an effect of coins falling out when you carry them. So I think that's pretty cool.
That is cool. The way that they look now, and me having not seen them in game, I think they're boring, but after you said the coin thing, they're pretty cool.
Right. Exactly. So here you go.
Yep.
I like both of these. I think that they did a great job with the lines and the light on these. I think they look very good. And a bit ago, we were talking about items that actually change the way you play. That's Fogbreaker here. So if you look at it, when you equip it, it lessens the effects of the Howling Winds while battling Lady Jaina Proudmoore. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's game changing. So I know, Brad, it's already ingrained in my head. I know, Blasty, that you were saying the mechanics that are in the game allow you to not really care about this, but if you want to explain what Howling Winds is,
so yeah, that's just a mechanic. After you finish the first phase of the Jaina fight, she basically freezes the ocean, and then you have to go through this wind that she creates to get to her. Once you get to her, I think it turns off that effect essentially for everyone else. So the way, as far as it was in the Fat Boss videos, you can negate that with rogues by just cloaking, running to her, getting to her, turns it off for everyone else, and you're good. They might change that. Obviously, that was not beta. What am I trying to say?
PTR.
Yeah, PTR version of the build for that fight. So they could just change that, because they should change that, to be honest. That would make this item more valuable,
right?
And I think that would be cool.
Right.
I think that'd be really cool, because it really looks good and it has an effect.
I agree. And then, of course,
the hand right here
looks pretty cool. The cursed monkey palm. It's actually a monkey hand, which is awesome. And I think I saw it in game. It moves like it actually, like, the fingers move as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes it even better.
Shields don't care because I don't carry a shield.
Right.
But I do. So I think that this one right here in the middle, this one looks the best, because look at the color diversity on it. I think that's really cool.
That is a very, very good color palette for that. Yeah. I'd love to see a MOG based around that shield.
Oh yeah, dude.
That would be great.
I think you're right.
It'd be hard to do, but I think it'd be really cool to see.
Yeah. So and moving on to staffs here next, we talked a bit ago about the Warlock set. So let's go up in the Warlock set, dude. The cloth set. The cloth set here. So keep this in mind when we look at the staffs, because the staves actually match and look really, really cool.
Yep.
Look at that. I mean, this Death Speaker Spire, man, that looks so awesome. And then, of course, you got your magey flavor here. right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. You have like a Frost and Arcane and a Fire one, and then you have something from Mythic.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, they're pretty simple, but that's okay. I mean, simple generally works better with a larger variety of things as far as Mog goes.
Yep. All right, on the swords, one-handed swords. So this first sword is actually part of a two-piece set. We talked about it earlier, the Keepsakes of the Resolute Commandant, which is part of that Frost set, right? Doing frost damage and slowing the target. I think that these are cool. So Dalen Proudmoore's saber, and it drops off of Jaina, which is so awesome.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I really like the whole kind of piratey, outlaw-y feel to things.
Yeah.
And this kind of has that. And I think that's because of and I don't know what the actual term for this for swords is, but when you have the little cover in front of your hand.
Right.
And I think that's cool. I like that a lot. And the color variations on them are good.
Oh, like the handguard on the hilt? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Gotcha.
And that kind of that makes it a little bit more piratey.
Yeah, agreed. So two-handed swords. Again, dude, if you could make a one-handed sword that went with that shield, this middle one would match it so well.
Yeah.
It's just it's too bad. It's too bad that, you know, these swords aren't one-handed, but I think that those look really cool.
Oh god, I wish it was one-handed.
Right.
But that says a lot about how I feel about the sword, right? I think it is a really cool looking. It's very unique. And the one in the middle, like you were talking about, it's just that color. The theme of it is really good.
That orange, like
Looks
deep
good.
red, dude, is, yeah, I think it looks great.
Going into that kind of
Dark,
jungle,
yeah.
rainforesty green. Yeah.
Yeah. This like reminds me of Aztec Incan kind of like, yeah, it looks awesome. The axes,
Yeah. I don't really think there's anything that special here. We've seen it before.
and in game they're so small.
Variations of this.
Yeah.
Are they?
They're small.
I don't like that. Yeah. They need to make some badass big swords. You know,
Axes,
or not
yeah.
Swords, axes. Yeah.
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 The two-hander looks sweet. It looks like a giant executioner's two-handed axe. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in game.
yeah.
Is it pretty big?
It's decently big. It looks cool though, I think.
Yeah. I don't think it's super special. Like,
It's not, but I think it gets to the point. I think it's, yeah, barbaric looking, which is the intent.
is there an effect coming from the actual blade itself?
Yes.
Okay.
There's
That
like
makes it a little
kind of
bit
light
better.
wisping off of it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Here's the wands. Not a ranged caster, but I actually really appreciate these. They're very simple, but I guess elegant looking. You could kind of say.
They look solid. You know, like
Yeah.
if you were to actually get one of these somehow and have it, it seems like it would be super solid, and you can almost like see the weight to it.
Yeah.
Cool.
And if you
'Cause
run
they
out of
do that
mana,
more in games.
yeah, you run out of mana or arcane power to power these things, you just throw it and it'll probably knock somebody out, man. They look hefty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
dude. Here's the bow. I think the bow looks really badass if that's the look you're going for. It's not very big though. Like that's the scale of it. You would feel like if you had like, what's this supposed to be, like a T-Rex or Velociraptor kind of skull, you feel like that should be much bigger, but it's not very big in game, which is kind of disappointing. I mean, if
Right.
you're a Tauren, it'll scale a little bit bigger, but it's okay.
I like it. I think it will go good with particular mogs, like you were saying, if that's what you're going for. But I feel like we've seen it before.
Yep. Yep. There's already a skeletal bow. It's not as intricate as this. It's a really good skeletal bow, but it's not unique. A little bit unique, but not. The gun. This is like a little blunderbuss steampunk thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've talked about this in the past. I actually like this.
Okay.
And I don't know why exactly. I think because it looks kind of bulkier.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it looks like in game, but
It looks cool. I like the gold.
Like the style of it.
Yeah, I like the. I like these two, like the one with the golden highlights, and then this black and gray one with kind of like the what is that color? Like like okra, not okra. That's a
Oh, I
vegetable,
have
Joe.
no idea.
This like I don't know. Like it's I like this one. If you're watching, I'm highlighting it. That's really cool to me. It reminds me of if you ever played Warhammer, the Space Marines kind of guns. This kind of reminds me of that
Okay.
for some reason. Yeah, it looks cool. And then lastly, the pole arms, the item that gets the least amount of love always,
Yeah.
and you can tell.
And once again, that's true because it's trash.
Yeah, it doesn't look very cool.
No,
So
they could have done better. Yeah.
lastly, down below you have your crowns, cloth, leather, mail, and then plate. Again, that the cloth one looks like a freaking warlock crown, man. Like that black and yellow. I want that one. But it's cloth.
I'm curious if anyone will actually use these as Mog,
Oh hell yeah, dude.
because I personally would never use this.
Prince
as a
Demon
Mog.
Hunter coming in, dude. And then of course mail gets screwed. They get pink. Vic, I expect you to wear this if you're listening.
Someone will wear it.
But yeah, so that kind of wraps it all up. It looks like Vic has a comment on that gun. He finds the gun incredibly disappointing, and the bow is meh, and he's a hunter. So there you have it, folks. I mean, there you have it. So that kind of wraps things up for the content that we wanted to go through today. Blasty, is there anything else you kind of wanted to add?
I think if we kind of wrap it there, that's good. If anyone wants to say anything in chat, we kind of like to take a few minutes at the end to answer anyone's questions or go down a path that you want to talk about. But I think if you want to generalize and kind of sum up everything that you think about this new tier and how it's going to pan out in your mind, how are you excited for it? What do you think?
And while you guys collect your thoughts, I can kind of touch on what our future plans are for this this content. We're going to be uploading it to YouTube, so if you're seeing it on YouTube, hi. But what we kind of originally intended with the last sort of 30 minutes, hour, depending on the actual engagement we got from you guys, is obviously this is a DPS channel. We wanted to focus on all the DPS specs and kind of specialize in that part, because you see a lot of channels like these. You've got all craft, classic craft, so on and so forth. We wanted to be a bit different and focus on DPS. Obviously, this is our first episode, so we're kind of introducing season 2 because that does drop tomorrow. But in the future, you're going to see a lot of how-to guides, DPS breakdowns, log breakdowns with Warcraft logs, and all the other tools that we have readily available to us. And with that, like I mentioned, the last half hour, depending on who we get and really how much help they potentially want, we wanted to spend that time one-on-one or stream on one with you and go through your logs and see what we can do to kind of get you climbing up in the ranks of the DPS meters. I know Blasty specializes in breaking down Warcraft logs and really pinpointing what it is that you as a DPS should be doing at what time, on what fight, with your rotation, with your talents, with your specs, with your gear, all of that. So that's the intention moving forward. This doesn't work unless you guys are actively engaged. So if we don't get the engagement that we're looking for, that's okay. We'll fill the time with more content, and hopefully we'll get some feedback. So Blasty, it looks like we got a question here in chat if you want to read that off.
Sure. So our friend Vic says, as someone who has been losing interest in everything BfA, y'all have me hyped as a potentially rating. I'm guessing you're saying. Nah, mean. Nah, mean. Yeah, I'm glad that you're feeling hyped on rating, and I think I'm on the same boat as you are, Vic, is that I've definitely lost interest in BfA, and which is kind of cool because today I was really feeling like, oh, I just want to play the game, but right now there's nothing to do. So if I log on to the game, I'm just sitting there in town like getting pissed off because I'm not doing anything, but I want to be. And now I do feel like there is some content coming that will keep us actively engaged in the game for at least a little while, and I hope Blizzard can keep or find a way to keep us engaged for further. all the way into the next tier rather than leaving us to a point where we're just doing the same things that we don't want to be doing. Basically, I don't know how long. I've been feeling like this probably for a couple months now, maybe a month, 2 months, something like that. But yeah, I'm happy that it's here.
Yep. So to answer your question, yes, I do know what you are saying. To quote Butters, right? I do know what you are saying. I do know what you mean. I felt like that a lot too for the past couple months, like Blasty had just said, where, and I agree with what he's saying, but I disagree with the concept of there's nothing to do. I think that there's plenty to do. It's just that none of it is exciting or engaging enough to make me want to do it. Like, sure. I am behind the curve on Azerite level. Okay. I totally am. I hit 34 today, and I should be spending time doing that, but those islands are so mind-numbingly boring to me that it's impossible for me to lose. If you even try to queue up for the PvP islands, nobody else is, so you're going to sit there for an hour waiting. Did that once, learned my lesson, got a t-shirt, okay? And even, you know, I guess recently they fixed the problem with even having alts, but I don't really play alts. Like, I'm a one-character kind of player. I'm the token demon hunter in my raid guild, so me swapping specs or characters isn't really necessary because you need my chaos brand. It's what I bring to the table. But that's, I mean, there are things that I can always do. And I think it's really important to remember and kind of check your perspective, right? Because if you're going into a game and you're going into Warcraft, especially with a lull of active engaging content with the new expansion, you're probably going to be in for a bad time with at least the development cycle that Blizzard are in right now. So if you check perspective and you try to have fun with the things that you do have available to you, I know we joked about, you know, alts are for casuals and things like that. There's a little tongue in cheek with that. Okay. And it's all about playing the game that you're paying for, you're paying your subscription for, and trying to have fun for the sake of fun's sake at the end of the day. You know, moving forward with being serious about this channel and the content that we would like to provide, we have to be a bit more serious and focus on, you know, the DPS. So that's where we're going to land. But at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, there's literally one way, only one way that you can tell Blizzard that, and that's unsubbing. As much as I hate for people to stop playing the game that I have been playing for half of my life, that's the only way to do that. So it looks like there's a follow-up. I'll just read it off right now. If I want to find more, where can I find you guys? If you want to find more content, come. So what we'll do is we'll link. We each have our own YouTube channels. Obviously, we're on my stream right now. Blasty also streams. So we'll put those links down below. We can also put them here in Twitch chat for you guys if you want to follow up. We're not as active as I think that we'd like to be, if I can speak for the both of us, as far as pushing content out. But I think we both, you know, if I can speak for you, Blasty, we both aim to put more out there, including this type of content.
Yep.
So
I completely agree with that.
If there are no more questions, you know, I'll give you guys a couple, like another minute here to put them in here. If you guys want to ask, we'll answer them. But if that's it, Blasty, looks like you had something you were about to say.
Yeah, I just stepped away for a brief moment, but did we mention the new channel that we are creating for this specific content?
Not exclusively. If you want to go ahead and talk about that, go for it.
So you can find us. We're creating a channel for the Dynamic DPS, which is going to be over on YouTube at Dynamic DPS. Hopefully, I don't know if we've actually checked that name. That would suck if it was taken, but we'll figure it out. And so if you want to rewatch any of these VODs or anything like that, you can catch it over on that channel. It won't be on either one of our specific channels.
But yeah, I think that's it, guys. So yeah, we're going to end stream. Hope to see you guys come back for next week's episode of Dynamic DPS. We don't have any specific plans right now, but I think really Blasty and I talked a little bit about it. We're probably just going to be doing a recap and focusing on the DPS perspective of the Battle for Dazar'Alor that comes out tomorrow. So, yep. Okay, guys, we're going to end and go ahead and if you'd like, give us a follow here on the stream. Give Blasty and I follows on Twitter so you can be aware if anything changes. And, of course, our YouTube channels as well. So thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks, guys.